Greetings, all. This class is presented by the Academic Division of the Gospel Music Workshop of America. Dr. Charles F. Reese is the Dean. I am Dr. Glenn Nixon, a member of the GMWA academic faculty and instructor for this class. The Zoom platform used for classes during the virtual board meeting is the beginning of many more to come. Thank you for joining us. Now let us begin. Welcome to day one of the Laity in Leadership Roles course. And so this course is designed to help you focus on laity leadership roles and its various aspects, approaches, and applications. Participants will examine personal and organizational approaches to dealing with change through case studies, exercises, and group discussions. Some of the student learning outcomes are lead with purpose based upon rooted in Christian principles, effectively develop standards that can be understood and practiced, build effective communication constructs and collaborative relationships, articulate ministry objectives, prepare and equip followers to address ministry goals, model healthy leadership practices to enhance ministry culture. And so as we start this session on day one, we will consider the matter of laity in leadership. We must consider that this term is associated with the church. And so first off, let's note that the church is a theocracy. And a theocracy should be governed by a theocratic style of leadership. And when I say a theocratic style of leadership, theocratic is not like the autocratic style of leadership where one person controls all the decisions and takes very little input from others in the group. The autocratic style of leaders, they make choices based on their own beliefs and don't involve others in suggestions or taking advice. But our style of leadership we're going to study is a theocratic style of leadership where it aligns with what we know as servant leadership. And servant leadership is a philosophy set in practice to enrich the lives of individuals, build better organizations, and ultimately create a more just and caring ministry or world. So as we dive into this theocracy or theocratic-led church, usually in the church setting, you have the ministerial staff, you have the pastor, senior pastor or pastor, and then you have the various pastors that serve underneath whoever the head pastor is, and then you have ministry leaders. And so in this aspect or idea of laity and leadership roles, that's what we're discussing. Those of you that are lay leaders, you're not ordained ministers, but you are lay leaders. And so you are serving in a non-ministerial capacity, meaning you probably have not been ordained as a preacher or a pastor, or licensed as a preacher or ordained as a pastor. And so when we talk about laity and leadership, I like what Keegan and Leahy state in their book, An Everyone Culture. You know, the whole idea of leadership and leading people is to create a better culture or a better place. And so that means a better me, a better you, a better us. And so we work together to create that dynamic of creating a better place through working with each other, through having each other's concerns. You're concerned about each other. And so you work to not only see about yourself, but see about others. You have the well-being of others on your mind. And so we want to start with this idea of leadership. And so, that's a broad term. Nowadays, that's a very common term rather, where people, they are building leadership academies now. They have various leadership programs. You have people saying, I'm a leader, you should be a leader. But one of the aspects of leadership is not only knowing the term leadership or your philosophy of what a leader is, but when you take on the role of a leader, you need to know what your function is, or better yet, know what your roles, duties, and responsibilities are. Knowing your role in the greater scheme is going to be very important to you, the organization, and for better outcomes. Understanding your role has even greater implications, understanding how your organization operates. And so, when we get into the aspect of leadership, we need to know who the leader is, who's in charge. You need to know where you fit in the organizational structure. Knowing your duties is important. Knowing the structure of your organization or ministry. As there's an old saying, who's on first? And knowing who's on first gives you a greater perspective of where you should be, where everyone else is in the organization. So understanding your part is important. Understanding what your part isn't is also important. At times, you may be asked to do certain things that might be great. I mean, it might be an incredible opportunity. You might be excited about it. You're very interested in doing it. But again, you as a leader, you should know what your role is and what your role is not. And so, before you, as the leader, get into areas that don't concern you, you need to make sure that you have covered all the bases of your main responsibility. Whatever your assignment, duties, and what the leader over you is expecting you to do, you need to ensure that you have covered those bases. Or as a more non-academic term, you need to be great where you are, because that is important to the overall mission. And so we're going to look at this term laity. The term laity is derived from the Greek word laos, which means people. In theological context, laity refers to the people of God, often in contrast with professional clergy. And so we talked about that early. Lay people are not, you're not necessarily a preacher or a pastor or an ordained person, but you are a person that's among the congregation that has been called for the purpose of leadership. And so the recent theological reflection on the laity of leadership has been rooted in the Trinitarian nature of God. And so laity is an aspect of working or being under God. In other words, laity, that term is usually associated with the church. And we know that the church is God's bride, okay? And so laity falls within the confines of God. The Christian laity represents a powerful force of service for the sake of the gospel. That's a powerful statement. The Christian laity represent a powerful force of service for the sake of the gospel. And so we're teaching this course within the confines of the Gospel Music Workshop of America. And what we do is we spread the good news of God through music, through various aspects of music, through various genres of music. And not only through music, but we have other ways of spreading the gospel. The Gospel Music Workshop is a complete organization. We cover basically every aspect of the church. And through this course, Laity in Leadership Roles, we're talking about how you as sometimes we would just say a regular person can make a great impact through service. And so a theological foundation we're going to consider is the nature of God. And one of the things that God has always done, God has always used people. And when you look in the Bible, many of the people that God used, they were not preachers and pastors. They were lay people. They were people that came in contact with God one way or another. God was known for finding people. He was known for setting a bush on fire, and getting people's attention. God was known for using nature to let people know that he is alive and he wants them to do something. And so again, these people weren't necessarily ministers, pastors or bishops or apostles or what have you, but they were regular people that God wanted to use, and these people allowed God to use them. And so I guess that is a foundation right there. So in this aspect of laity in leadership roles, there is a connection between the lay person and God. And so as a lay person, you are under the authority of God first. You are under the authority of God. Your steps and your thoughts ought to be ordered by God. And so we are under the authority of God, but we usually as lay people, we are under the authority usually of an ordained person, a ordained man or woman of God that serves as the pastor, or in some denominations, the bishop, the overseer, in some organizations, the president or the vice president, the moderator. And so we, as lay leaders, we normally serve under someone. And let me say this while we're here. Lay people are important. Although you serve under the authority of someone, that is for the sake of order. That there has to be order. God, even in Christianity or religion or spirituality, there is order. God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And so that is an analogy of order. And so everyone's role is important. Even you as the lay leader, although you're not ordained, although you do not have the office, the big office, although you don't have the title, you are important. So always keep that in mind. Always keep that in mind. And so when we get into the aspect of order, order usually resides within the confines of organization. And so back to understanding your role as a lay leader, understanding your role in the organization. What is your role? Do you have a clearly defined position description? Because that is going to set you up for success or failure. Success or failure, knowing what your expectations are. And again, knowing what your expectations are not. And so let's talk about laity in the aspect of where you fit into an organizational setting. One of the things that Max Dupree talks about is defining your responsibility as a leader in the greater aspect. The leader must be able to become a servant and a debtor, or some people will say debtor. A leader must become a servant and a person that is in debt to others. He says the sum that sums up the progress of an artful leader is being a servant and a debtor or debtor, however you want to say it. And so in aspect, as a leader, you are there to serve others. You're there to serve others. The Bible says that the greatest of these is a servant. Leadership is not about titles or positions or who's in charge or who's going to boss everyone around, but it's about serving. It is about serving. You serve others. The lay leader is a servant. The greatest thing you will ever do is to serve God and to serve others. And so in the organizational setting, you find out how you serve others. How will you serve others? How will you serve those above you in rank? How will you serve those below you in rank? And so understanding your job or understanding your role is going to be very important. And one of the aspects of serving and service in this aspect, and we're going to talk about this a little later, is transforming the lives of others, improving the organization, transforming lives, equipping others to go out and serve, equipping others, serving others, being available where you can be best used. Over these 2 days, we're going to talk about a type of theory, type of leadership theory called the leadership development in situational theory. We're going to talk about situational theory. And situational theory is based on the idea of complexity, urgency, meaning that although you may have a particular style of leadership you are comfortable with, The situational theory says you adjust your style of leadership to accommodate the situation. And so as a lay leader, again, under leadership, you look at the entire organization. You look at who's on first. You decide where you fit into the organizational structure. Again, it is important for you as a leader to find out what you're supposed to be doing. Find out where you are supposed to be. And if you need clarification, always ask for clarity. Get clarification. Ask someone. Don't ever be afraid to ask. Don't ever be embarrassed to ask. That is what makes us educated people. We have the intelligence to ask. We have the intelligence to research. We have the intelligence to find out. We do what we need to do to make sure that we are on task. So as a leader, as a lay leader, you have great responsibilities. I mean, you've got to know where you're supposed to be, know what you're supposed to do, know what others do, know what others are not supposed to be doing, knowing what you're not supposed to be doing, and for the sake of transforming lives. And so, as we move on to the idea of leadership and laity in leadership, we look at the situational aspect, and then we look at the lay leader, So let me say this, before we move on, let me say this. If you don't remember anything else I tell you over these 2 days, remember if you are given the privilege to lead others and you take on that responsibility, you are the leader, okay? You are the leader. Too often I see the leader not being the leader. They allow people with great personalities, incredible ideas, people that are bold, they talk loud and big, they're intelligent, they're educated, and they come in and intimidate the leader. Again, if you decide that you're going to take on the privilege of leading and that responsibility, at that point that you sign your name on the line, acknowledging that you have agreed to become the leader, you are the leader. And make sure that you stay in your role as the leader. I don't care what is going on in your ministry or outside of your ministry. Remember, it goes back to you understanding the whole, understanding the organizational structure, understanding who's in charge of you, who is not in charge of you, your roles and responsibilities, what they are and what they are not. Do not step outside the confines of what your duties call for. If your leader comes to you and asks you to do something different, at that point, do something different. But if your leader does not come to you and ask you about chasing rabbits, then you don't go and chase rabbits, okay? You do not go and chase rabbits. Now, let me say this. Now, if it's something that is going to cause you to protect the integrity of your ministry, of the mission of the church, or what have you, by all means protect the integrity of that ministry or organization. But otherwise, do not, or as they say, in layman terms, stay in your lane, because getting out of your lane can cause great problems. Knowing the mission. I mean, you've got to know the mission. You've got to know the mission from the organizational standpoint. What is the leader of the organization saying? In our organization, the Gospel Music Workshop of America, in the academic division, Dr. Dean Reese is our leader. We listen to what Dr. Reese says. We listen attentively. We get an understanding of what he wants, how he wants it. And then we go back to our individual classes or whatever we serve as, and we articulate that mission. We don't articulate another mission. We don't say anything different from what our leader has said. We articulate that mission, and that is where order comes in. That's where order is important. I mean, there has to be order. Someone has to give direction. Someone has to follow directions. Someone has to be able to articulate those directions. And so usually in the sense of you being a lay leader, you're not creating ideas. You're not coming with your own ideas. You are articulating the message from the pastor or the leader or the bishop or wherever you're serving. You are articulating the mission of the organization. And so we have superiors, and we have to respect superiors. You need to know how they operate. You need to know how they think. And you do that through meeting with them, probing them, asking them questions, listening to them, listening. As leaders, we listen. I don't care how much of a leader you are, you've got to be a listener. Someone said leaders do more listening than talking. That's true in one aspect, but as you are giving directions and, letting everyone know that you're the leader, you need to also be a listener. You need to be listening to people. Even sometimes, and this is maybe an obscure analogy, but even the person that you think that is not the sharpest knife in the drawer, listen to them, because sometimes that person is the one that's really making sense. And so you have to listen to everybody, or listen to everyone and consider what you heard, and then give some thought to it, and then do what is best for the organization. And so knowing the moving parts of the organization is important. As a leader, you want to be fair to yourself. I think sometimes as leaders, we're hard on ourselves because we are pulled away. I think James says when we're pulled away from God, that's when we get in trouble. Sometimes as leaders, we're pulled away from our roles and responsibilities. We're pulled away from taking care of what we're supposed to be taking care of. And we have people that we are responsible for. And so as we deal with the situational aspect of leadership, we're responsible for people. What we are responsible for, we are responsible to God. We are responsible to those that serve above us and provide leadership to us. But usually as a leader, you're leading people. And so that is who you are responsible for. And at times you have to call those people that you are responsible for. You have to call them on the carpet. You have to say, hey, come here, let's talk. What you did or what you said, that is not representative of this organization. That is not representative of this ministry. You have to ensure that the people that you are working with that they are representing you. You protect the integrity of your ministry. We who serve at the Gospel Music Workshop in leadership roles, we should protect the integrity of this organization. We are a worldwide ministry. And before you do something or say something, you need to think about the integrity of this organization. Bishop Albert L. Jameson serves as the president and chair of this organization. We have the board of directors who serve in leadership capacity. We have in this part of the Gospel Music Workshop, we have Dean Charles Reese, who serves as the academic chair. And so before we go out and say anything or do anything that could hurt this organization, we need to think about it. If you see others doing it, you as a leader, as they say, if you see something, say something. That's who we are as leaders, as lay leaders. As leaders, we have the role of ensuring that the people we work with, we protect their welfare and safety, or safety and welfare. And so we are continuously learning. We're learning, we're listening, we're probing, we're trying to get information to find out how to be better leaders. In leadership, we are dealing with various situations. We deal with various personalities. People from various cultures come to this gospel music workshop. People from different regions. We have people that come from the north. We have people that come from the south. We have people that come from the East Coast and the West Coast. And so even those are different aspects of the country, where ideals may be a little different. But as a leader, you have to lead all types of people. You serve at the pleasure of the organization. When you take on a global role, then you're not limited to your region. You are not limited to your region. You have to understand who you are leading. Try to understand them. As you lead them, because sometimes things are said or done that is not meant to harm. It's maybe something we don't understand. But as a leader, again, you are learning. You are trying to find out the best way to lead people. And so, again, knowing the expectations up front, that is important. Sometimes as a leader, you have limitations. It doesn't make you a weak leader. You just have to know what your limitations are. And if those are areas you need to work on, this is what makes us wise. We work on them. We become educated. We educate ourselves. We do as William Shakespeare said in Hamlet, when he said to Polonius, to thine own self be true, to thine own self be true. I think in the Bible it says this, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. And so you have to know not only the workings of the organization for where you serve, but you've got to know yourself. You've got to know yourself, because this is a sensitive part of leadership. You have to know yourself. You have to know what the expectations are of the organization, because guess what? You may not be the person to be the leader. That is a hard pill to swallow. I know we think highly of ourselves and we're great and we're educated. We're Dr. So-and-so. We've got 3 masters and, We're well read. We know the Bible from Genesis to Revelation. We know this, that, and the other. We're polished. But sometimes you are not the person to be the leader. And so you have to know yourself. You have to know your limitations. You have to know what you're going to stand for, what you believe in, what you don't believe in. You must remember that, again, knowing yourself, knowing your strengths and weaknesses does not make you weak. It makes you a better person. Honestly, it does, and so for the leader that is going to take on the leadership role is knowing yourself. In leadership, and I'm in the midst of completing a dissertation, and in part of the dissertation is talking about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is huge in leadership. I personally believe that every leader ought to take an emotional intelligence test. Because what happens is we get people in leadership positions. Yes, they're degreed. Yes, they have all types of experience. Yes, they've set up under some of the greats. But some of these people have mental issues. Let me put it that way. I wish I had a better scholarly term to use. But some of these people have mental issues. Or as I heard when we were growing up, they're crazy, because again, they do not take into consideration the integrity of the organizations they're allowed to serve in. They don't take into consideration the people they are in charge of protecting. All they know is they're in charge and they're going to do what they want to do. They're going to say what they want to say. In one of my courses, I can't remember if it was in the master's or the doctoral program, we read a book titled Overcoming the Dark Side of Leadership, and how to become an effective leader by confronting potential failures. You know what? Get that book. The name of the book is Overcoming the Dark Side of Leadership. How to become an effective leader by confronting potential failures. It's by McIntosh and Rima. That book, it was transformative in itself because it helped me to see a side that I probably wouldn't have approached. Because, we all think that we're good and we're great and we have the favor of God and we have angels walking with us and, we this, that, and the other. But there is a dark side to us that we need to consider, and we need to deal with it. We need to know the truth about the other side of us, and that will help us to be a better leader. That is going to help us to better serve people. And so if you can, look at that book, The Dark Side of Leadership. And so as we move on, we talk about how leaders should think. Man, leaders should have the mind of God. There's a passage in the Bible that says, let this mind be in you that is also in Christ Jesus. Well, how does God think? Several years ago, they had these armbands, and the saying was, what would Jesus do? Well, remember, church, religious matters, spiritual matters, we fall up under the theocracy. We are a theocracy. And so the term theos is related to God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, the God who created the heavens and the earth. And so we should never become so educated and spiritual, that we don't get things approved by God. We have to, as lay leaders, we have to get our approval from God. Let me say this, and this may be a touchy subject. If we remember, there's God, the ultimate leader, then there's the ministerial leader, the pastor, the preacher, and then we fall, usually as lay leaders, we fall up under that. But even when the pastors and preachers say something and it does not settle with your spirit. Now let me say this, and I'm not talking about something you just don't want to do because you don't want to do it. I'm talking about something that's a conviction in your spirit that's just not settling with you. You need to have that aspect of leadership. You need to be a man or woman enough or bold enough or have the integrity to go to those that are even in charge of you and say, well, pastor or reverend or bishop or apostle or overseer, that is not selling in my spirit, and talk to them and try to come to some type of resolution. It says that you have integrity and you have the integrity of the organization at heart. And so, one of the things of a leader is making sure that the people you are serving are growing. You make sure that you are sharing your knowledge, sharing skills with them. People development, is a major part of the lay leader. One of the things I remember, there's a passage in the Bible where in Matthew 8 and 9, where they came to the centurion, and as the exchange goes, the centurion wanted Jesus to come and heal somebody, or he wanted them to heal somebody, not necessarily come. And Jesus said, well, I'll come. And he said, oh, no, just send your word. Your word is good enough. And he goes on to tell Jesus, he says, I too am a man under the authority of superior officers, and I have soldiers under me. The man noted that he was under the authority of those over him, and then he had people serving under him. And usually in that style of leadership, that's more of the autocratic style, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, where you have these tiered layers of leadership. You have people over you and sometimes under you. But in essence, I use that analogy to say that, as leaders, we'll often have people over us and under us, but also use that analogy to talk about the great faith that this leader had. He said, just speak your word or send your word. I, as a leader, I have faith in a higher being. And so as leaders, we have to have that faith in a higher being. We have to be led by God. There's a passage that says that the sons of God are led by the Spirit of God. And so as we operate in this realm of leadership, let's make sure we're operating in the Spirit of God. Let me say this as we come to the close of this. Make sure you don't have ulterior motives, okay? If you're going to be a leader, you need to be God-led. And you know what? God will expose you. God will expose you. Make sure, and that goes through looking at the dark side, finding out what your dark side is and is not. But as you go through this role of leadership, remember we are the sons and the daughters of God, and we should be led by His Spirit and consider it a privilege that God chose you for leadership. And so as we go into day 2, we're going to continue this journey on laity and leadership.